Good evening, everybody. We're going to call to order the Planning Commission for the City of San Clemente on Wednesday, April 2nd, 2025. We're convened in the City Hall of San Clemente in City Council chambers. And I'd like to ask everybody to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready to begin?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All commissioners are present with the exception of Commissioner Brent Davis. He's absent. That takes us, we have no special orders, so that takes us to the minutes from February 19th. We have a motion from Commissioner Prescott Loeffler to approve. A second? Second from Vice Chair McCacken. Is there any discussion about the minutes? Are everyone okay with the minutes? All right. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Minutes pass unanimously. Item 6 is members of the audience that want to address the Planning Commission on anything other than what's on the agenda tonight. I don't have any blue cards. Does any member of the audience want to speak on a non-agenda item? Seeing none. Consent calendars, item 7. We have none. Now we're at item 8, our public hearings. We have one tonight. It is a public hearing for Project 24485, the Myron Residence Addition, 245 Avenida de Poniente. I will, before opening the public hearing, let me just turn to my colleagues. Any ex parte communication? Commissioner Prescott Loeffler?
I decided to go out and take a look at the property, and that was, I did a couple of pass-bys.
Okay.
That's all I have to
We
offer.
had a site visit from one commissioner. Anyone else?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so 2 commissioners, Prescott Loeffler and Crandall, did site visits. Great. I'll now open the public hearing. So our process is that we will hear from the professional staff. They'll provide their overview report. And then the applicant will have 10 minutes to make their presentation. Then we'll turn to any member of the public for 3 minutes a person. If we have any member of the audience that wants to make a public comment, they'll have 3 minutes. The applicant will have another 3 minutes to respond. Then the commission will have some questions. We'll close the public hearing, and then we'll entertain motions. So that's the process. So with that, I'm going to recognize our Assistant Planner, Jessica Gantry. She's going to provide the staff report tonight. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm Jessica Gatney, Assistant Planner in the Planning Division, presenting Public Hearing Project 24-485, a request for a Cultural Heritage Permit 24-527, and Minor Exception Permit 24-498 to permit the demolition of a non-compatible addition located at the rear of the structure and construct a 2-story addition with a roof deck at the rear of the structure. The site was originally developed in 1938 with a single-story, single-family Spanish Colonial Revival residence. Over the years, various additions and modifications have been made, as detailed in the staff report. Over the years, excuse me, this proposal specifically addresses the final non-compatible addition. In 2014, a historic property preservation agreement was executed, designating the property as a local historic resource and securing Mills Act tax incentives. This project fulfills the majority of the remaining improvements outlined in the 10-year agreement. The Cultural Heritage Subcommittee reviewed this project on January 29th, and all of the committee's recommendations have been incorporated into the project. The property is located at 245 Avenida del Poniente It is zoned residential medium and coastal zone overlay. The property is in the categorical exclusion area. The property owners have made significant efforts to improve the site, including removing and reversing an unpermitted garage pop-out, completing a front yard sewer repair that led to new landscaping, and restoring all of the original windows. Additionally, they have remodeled the kitchen and bathroom, re-roofed the home, and removed non-original fascia boards. The project proposes to fully demolish the non-original, non-compatible, and non-conforming addition and construct a two-story addition with a roof deck at the rear of the structure. The first floor will include a family room with a covered porch, a broad wraparound stairs, as well as an enclosed staircase leading to the new second floor main bedroom. This suite will feature a full bath, walk-in closet, and recessed balcony with Spanish Colonial Revival wrought iron railing. Above the second floor, the stairway transitions into an open exterior stairway, also featuring wrought iron railing, which provides access to the roof deck. The roof deck will be built into the sloped roof at the rear of the structure, screened from the public view, and enclosed by a 42-inch high stucco parapet wall. The non-compatible 237 square foot addition being demolished is identified in red on the demo plan on the right side of the slide. The proposed addition, shown in yellow, totals 948 square feet, expanding the residence living area from 1,189 square feet to nearly 1,900 square feet, representing a 60% expansion. Setbacks are identified on the site plan as red dashed lines. The original footprint of the home encroaches on both side yard setbacks. Existing non-conforming portions of the building include the east side of the garage and a section of the west side of the house. Although public notification had minor exception permit 24-498 listed, it is not required because the proposed addition does fully comply with the required setbacks. The project does propose to replace the roof above a portion of the historic residence, which encroaches on the right side yard setback area, though replacement and alterations of roofs that do not exceed the height limit of the zone are allowed, per section 17.72.050.g.1, and therefore a minor exception permit is not required. The first floor addition includes a family room and a rear porch, along with an enclosed stairway leading to the second floor main bedroom, suite, and balcony. The stairway extends further to the roof deck, which is integrated into the sloped roof. The addition is set back at the rear of the house and will not alter the footprint of the original home. The first floor will feature an inset to differentiate it from the original. While the addition's materials will be differentiated from the original, it will remain architecturally compatible. The second floor addition is visible in the front elevation, featuring a front-facing gable roof that mirrors the existing garage roof. It also includes traditional vertical-oriented divided light windows. The rear elevation highlights the first floor porch, second floor covered balcony, and stairway incorporating the Spanish Colonial Revival wrought iron railing. The roof deck is also visible in this elevation and will feature the 42-inch high stucco parapet walls. The proposed two-story addition is clearly presented in these elevations. The recessed porch and balcony are visible in the left east elevation, along with the stairway and roof deck, which can be seen in both elevations. The right west elevation was a point of discussion at the Cultural Heritage Subcommittee meeting. It is important to highlight the site context of this property, as an existing large two-story multifamily apartment building directly abuts this property, and one of the primary design objectives is to enhance privacy from the adjacent property. Numerous modifications have been made to this elevation based on the subcommittee's recommendations. The applicant has adjusted the roof line to mirror the existing gable roof of the original home, allowing for visible roof tiles on this elevation. Additionally, they have transition the stairway above the second floor to an exterior design incorporating the wrought iron railing. And the window layout has been redesigned, featuring a couple of vertical oriented windows to add visual interest to the facade. The slide highlights the project's historically compatible design elements, including windows, a Spanish colonial revival wrought iron railing, exposed rafter tails, barrel tile roofing, and a matching roof slope. Additionally, the project restores key character-defining features by painting the eaves, replacing the wood siding with stucco, updating roof fence, and refining the entry fence to better align with the traditional Spanish colonial revival aesthetic. Per standard number 9, the work will not destroy historic features and will be differentiated from the original. And standard 10, new additions must protect the original structure so that if removed, the property could be returned to its original state. Therefore, the project is consistent with the character of the historic residence and would not negatively impact the historic resource. The project maintains the architectural and historical integrity of the historic resources consistent with the Secretary of Interior standards, city design guidelines, and meets the required findings of the cultural heritage permit, and that the project remains a single-family residence, the addition complies with zoning standards and setbacks, and the project is compatible with the style of the existing residence, and that the project is consistent with properties in the neighborhood, which are primarily 1- and 2-story homes. Staff recommends the project to be found categorically exempt from CEQA pursuant to sections 15301 and 15303. And finally, it is recommended that the Planning Commission adopt Resolution PC 25-005 approving Public Hearing Project 24-485 for Cultural Heritage Permit 24-527. Subject to the conditions of approval. Thank you.
So I have a quick question, Jessica.
Yes.
The minor exception permit, that's no longer a part of this?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So we're just considering the cultural heritage permit.
Yes, correct.
All right. Are there any other questions before we call the applicant up? Okay, I'll recognize the applicant now. We have representing the applicant, his architect Christine Lambert, as well as Brett Myron. You're both welcome to come on up and make your presentation.
I'll do it, and then Brett can come up and join me.
Fantastic. Welcome, Ms. Lambert.
Thank you. I'm Christine Lampert. I'm an architect. I've lived in San Clemente for almost 50 years, so I've done many projects here. Jessica, you did a great job. Thank you. Thank you very much. I just wanted to speak briefly in favor of our project. My goal as an architect in this town who's done Ole Hansen remodels is to really maintain the integrity of that project. And the Myrons have a lovely house that we're not changing. We're adding so that it's a livable space for a family with children to have plenty of room and more than one bathroom. So hopefully, if you have any questions, let me know. But I just wanted to speak in favor and let you know that we really work hard to make sure that we maintain the integrity of our Ole Hansens here in town. Thank you. And I don't know if Brett, do you want to say a few words?
Thank you. So I want to just start by thanking Jessica and the city for working with us on this project. I really appreciate your help and guidance as we work to preserve our historic properties in town. And I want to say that we would never have purchased this home if we weren't big believers in historic preservation. So we're a big fan of the Mills Act and also just the project in general of trying to preserve the historic character of the city. So I want to make sure that everyone understands how we feel about that. I also want to say 2 philosophies or ideas drove all of our design decisions. I want to emphasize those. Number one in keeping with the first comment I made about historic preservation, we wanted to do as little as possible to touch the home. We wanted to leave the home relatively intact. And you'll see from the design, if it wasn't clear, that we basically haven't touched anything on the original home. So we chose all of the places where we were going to build so that there would be the least amount of change to the existing home. And then the second thing, which was emphasized or mentioned by Jessica, but I wanted to highlight it, is that the other thing driving our decisions in design was an effort to preserve or maintain or privacy. It's not really clear in the images that you've seen, but there is an enormous structure on the west side of the home. It's a giant 2-story apartment building. I'm not really sure how it was ever permitted, but nevertheless, it's there. It runs the length of the property from the street, basically all the way back to the very back corner of our yard. And because it's 2 stories along the length of that property line, it looks over our house and our entire yard. So we saw this as an opportunity, A, to preserve the historic structure of the home, and B, to try to gain some privacy in order to shield ourselves from that property next door. So those were our 2 goals. And I think if you keep those 2 things in mind as you're looking at where we decided to build in the home and on the property, I think we've achieved those goals. I hope you feel the same. And we're happy to do it and to be part of this project with the city. Thank you. Do you have any questions for me?
Does that conclude your,
Yes.
okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, we can see if there's questions. Any questions right now? No questions, but we'll let you know if we have any for now. So that would conclude the applicant presentation. Is there any member of the public that wants to speak on this item? I don't have any speaker cards, and I don't see anyone indicating they want to speak. So there's really no need for a response. You've had your presentation. So let me open it up to my colleagues. Do we have any questions, or should we close the public hearing and have discussion? You have questions? No? Bart? Steve? No? Okay. I'm going to close the public hearing, and now I'm going to turn to my colleagues to see if somebody wants to have any comments or make a motion.
We can kick it off.
Yeah, let's have Commissioner Camp, who is a member of our Design Review Subcommittee, maybe lead off our discussion on this.
So we did review this at the DRSC, and we made some comments, and it appears that they've all been addressed, adequately. As a matter of fact, I want to thank you for putting the time and the effort into making these revisions. I think they're a big improvement. And especially on the, well, in general, but especially on the west elevation, which was rather harsh, understandably because of that structure next door. But I think that what you're proposing here is much better, and I'm prepared to support the project. I don't have any other comments.
Anyone else? Commissioner Prescott Loeffler?
Going out to the property today, I concur that there is a massive building, apartment complex right next to the property, and it would appear that this would provide some privacy and bring it focus on a single-family home. Also, that the 9 recommendations that the design review suggested were met. So I would be in favor of approving the property.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Crandall?
Yeah, I was unable to attend the Design Review Subcommittee meeting when this was done. So can either of the members there relay to us what the Historic Society had to say and what comments? They're in the minutes, but is there anything you would elaborate on?
Commissioner Camp, did you want to field that?
Sure. Generally, they supported the project. There were some existing materials. On the front, there was some siding. If you look at the photos of the existing building, there are some materials there. It wasn't clear that those were going to be removed or replaced. Like,
On the
yeah,
gable end.
yes, yes. But other than that, there really wasn't much from the Historical Society. Really, a lot of what they commented on had to do with primarily the materials, the colors. You know, we went to a more, I think, reasonable palette. And they didn't really have any comments other than, you know, the roof in the back. I'll just comment on that. It was a gable roof, but it was turned 90 degrees. And it looked odd. So we suggested that they basically rotate it 90 degrees, and I think it's a big improvement. We don't have any renderings, but you can tell with the shading on the elevations, that proportionally it's a lot better. So, as far as there wasn't really that much. It's mostly architectural. And then there's a clear separation now with I don't know if it's a reveal or if it's actually a setback, where the new addition is clearly defined as a separate element, which they did satisfactorily, so. Unless, Commissioner Cosgrove, do you recall anything else? I think that was pretty much it.
I think that was it. We had some conversations about the garage and the porch and things of that, I think some just construction issues, so, and I think the applicant was very receptive and also very forthcoming in his intentions, and so I think everybody felt very comfortable. Yep.
One actually question I have, the wrought iron guardrail, is that consistent? It's a sort of a little more fanciful, I guess, shape of wrought iron, the verticals. Is that consistent on the entire house? Or are you doing something different in the back?
Could you mind just coming up to the microphone, just so we can capture you on the record, and if anybody else is viewing, they can hear you? Thank you.
Christine Sprague, the other Christine on there.
The other architect for the applicant.
With the architect, and I did all the rendering and the elevations and floor plans and everything. So that, just so you know, that railing that's on there is just a representation of iron railing, and it'll be a very traditional railing, not so fanciful as you say, because it's essentially, that's the only railing I have in the 3D modeling in Revit to use for that, so that's why it's kind of, it has the curly Q on the bottom.
Oh, that's a weak excuse.
That's what you're, that's what you're referring to, is the curly Q on the bottom? So, yeah, it'll be.
My staff tells me that all the time. and I
It'll
tell
be
them,
much more simple, traditional, with vertical balusters, dark metal, black metal, and the top rail.
Okay.
So,
Everything else is consistent between the plans and the elevations, it seemed to be.
yeah.
We did talk about the brick briefly,
The chimney? Or-
yeah, the brick on the chimney.
Yeah,
have-
that's going, Jessica can talk to that. That's going into the future Mills.
Yeah, one of the conditions of approval is that they submit a payment for reinspection. So the consultants will come back out and reassess their property, and, because they're at their 10-year mark for their Mills Act, so they need to renew
So
it.
for the structural integrity or just for the aesthetic of?
Well, there was a
the-
couple things that were brought up, and that's in one of the attachments. There was the second door on the front facade, and then there was the chimney. And we were questioning whether those need to be removed or not, and we wanted to consult with some historical consultants about that, GPA. So that's part of redoing their Mills Act, renewing it.
Okay, so when does that happen?
Before they're issued building permits, they need to put the deposit down to get that process started.
Okay. And do you guys actually look at a sample materials board? Or is it just a digital?
Oh, just digital.
Okay. Yeah, this is a different discussion, but I think in the future, we may want to look at the actual paint colors. Yeah. Because I don't think we had that for this one.
That was not available in design review.
Yeah.
Now, I can say that most of the materials are to match existing, minus the wrought iron railing. So,
Okay. Thanks. Is that,
No, that sounds good to me. Unless there's other questions, I'd like to maybe turn to Jessica for a moment. And so what we're really looking at from your perspective tonight is adoption of a exemption from CEQA, and then the resolution 25005, and that cultural heritage permit 24485. Those are the actions you need tonight.
correct.
Okay. Do we have any further discussion on this? All right, I'm going to go ahead and then move the staff recommendations. One, that we categorically find this project to be exempt from requirements from the California Environmental Quality Act, and that would be due to the Class 1 existing facilities exemption, and Section 15303, the new construction or conversion of a small structure, and then adopt resolution for the Planning Commission 25-005 approving Culture Heritage Permit, or PHP 24-485 for the Myron Residence Edition.
second?
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion that I have made, and it's been seconded by Commissioner McCann. Is there any further discussion on this item? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimous. Congratulations. There is a 10-day appeal period. I think you're probably in the clear there. And then after that, you're good to go. Thanks for all your work. Appreciate all your time
It's really
dedicated to preserving our cultural heritage in San Clemente. It's definitely appreciated, and hopefully you'll find it well worth it in the long run. So thank you for all your efforts to go through the process. And congratulations on your new addition. Okay, that concludes our public hearings tonight. And item 9 on the agenda is new business. We have none. Item 10 is old business, also none. Item 11 is reports of commissioners and staff. Did you have something, Scott?
Yeah, I have a couple of topics that I'd like to bring up, potentially for future consideration, or at a minimum discussion by the commission. One is grading permits in the city and the possibility of creating a minor grading permit. The grading, if you need a grading permit, which is if you're moving more than 50 cubic yards of dirt, it's a months-long process. It's very involved. I've talked to engineering. I think they would like a minor grading permit because there's a good number of cases where there's not that much going on. It's maybe a flat lot, but they just trigger it, and then it throws them into a more complicated, involved review process than maybe is warranted. So what would be the process, Jonathan, to maybe kind of review or consider that?
So grading permits are processed through the Public Works Department. I am not directly familiar with that threshold, the 50 cubic feet. If it's something that's codified, then we would need to have an initiation through council to modify the code. And if it's not, if it's a engineering technical standard, then I believe that we would have some more flexibility to look at addressing that, again, unless it was something that was specifically adopted by the council. So I'll have to look into the exact location of that standard and where that's housed.
Okay, thank you. The other topic that I guess I would like to understand better is related to the Mills Act. And I'm supportive of the Mills Act. But people get property tax break in exchange for making repairs to their property. And I'm a little bit wondering about it because we've had cases recently where people are getting the Mills Act coverage, but it doesn't seem to benefit anyone but themselves, because if the property is enshrouded by landscaping and completely non-visible, it seems to me the purpose of the Mills Act is to, preserve historic structures, but for the benefit of everyone, so they can see them and enjoy them and learn about them and learn about the architecture or whatever. But in the case where there's properties that are completely covered by landscaping, I don't see how that benefits anybody, of the public. So, I don't know if that's a study session issue or a offline conversation or what, but I think it's something that we should talk about. Those are my 2 comments. Thank you.
So Jonathan, maybe you can just consider that, and maybe going forward, if that, in talking with maybe one of our historical consultants, maybe you can just bounce that off of them offline, and if they have some information, maybe you could just communicate that back, if that's possible.
Yeah, I think it is possible. One of the things we could look at doing is even having an update either by staff or by that consultant when they are preparing to do their next round of inspections, just to provide an update on their methodology and going through that. And I think that could be a good avenue for us to also capture things of that sort. If we have a property that, for instance, has overgrown hedges, et cetera, we could incorporate that as a component of the ongoing contract. Mills Act contracts renew automatically every year. And so one of the conditions that was referenced in this project tonight, that project properties at their 10-year time frame, we do an inspection every 5 years. We haven't always done that. That's something that is new within the last 5 years. So we're systematically going through these properties and looking for things that are of imminent threat, water damage, termite damage, trying to address those things, of course, but aesthetic elements as well to.
But I think what I heard from Commissioner McCann here is there a threshold within the act itself that requires that view corridor or some public benefit is conveyed? If not, then I think his question's answered. It's not a requirement, and that's fine. But I think that's more where I heard you coming from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think what we could do when we have an update, we'll have that on the agenda, and if the Planning Commission would like to provide direction to staff on things to look for as we update those contracts to incorporate certain elements into the contract.
But I think the
we can do
question
that.
is that a requirement within the Secretary of Interior standards, that there be public view? Because if that's not a criteria, then I think his question's answered and we just move on.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, it depends if we have discretion. I don't know if it's up to the, discretionary body to, request that or whatever.
Well, when you get a chance.
Yeah.
When we review the Mills Act agreements, we certainly have the ability to make that one of the items of the ongoing maintenance of the property. And that goes on longer than the 10 years. That continues on, and that's the whole purpose of the Mills Act, is to maintain the house and the view of it also. And I don't think we've said that in a lot of them, some that have historic landscaping, we definitely want them to maintain it in its original state. But we can certainly put that in. And we can also add it because the Mills Act continues year after year. It's 10 years at any point in time. It's a sliding scale. And the city has the ability to put additional items on that list. And one of them could be maintaining the landscaping, I believe.
Yeah, so I think we can wrap up with, we'll get it onto an agenda to provide a higher level update on that and get additional feedback on certain elements that the Planning Commission wants us to pay attention to.
Perfect. Does that work for you, Scott?
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, great. I had an item I wanted to bring to everyone's attention, and I took some initiative as well. Last night at the city council meeting, they reorganized some of our city committees and commissions. I don't know if you all heard that conversation. But at the end of it, there was a discussion about the Design Review Subcommittee. And there were some concerns expressed and some questions, I think, expressed about its function and its efficiency. Is it duplicative of what the Planning Commission does? How much overlap is there? Do applicants have multiple rounds as a result of having a design subcommittee and a planning commission, or are those completely separate? So I took the initiative to reach out to Council Member Cabral, who was the source of those questions, and invited him to come tonight. And I see him, he's in the audience, so I want to thank you, Victor, for coming. And actually, if it's all right with everybody, I'd like to invite Councilmember Cabral to come up and share his feedback with us on what his thoughts are or concerns are about design review, and maybe we'd have the opportunity to engage in some discussion and perhaps even clarify some of the questions or answer them, or at least hear what his concerns are.
Would be helpful.
So, Victor, welcome, and thanks for coming here.
Absolutely. I'm sorry I didn't get dressed up for this.
That's
but
all right.
First of all, thank you for all the work you do. I don't think I could do it. I know it's a challenge to be here and to review all the projects, and it's probably thankless work, much like everything we all do for the city, but we do it because we love this city, I think. And so, again, I thank you for what you're doing. The concern, we don't have a solution yet. We're trying to get a sense of the problem. We've asked Adam Atamian to take a look at what the best solution is. So we're not ahead of you. And in fact, if any of you want to have an independent discussion with him about what you think a solution is, we get contacted by residents, as you know, and they say there's an issue with design review and planning and having two bites at the apple. And sometimes they believe that what takes place in planning it comes up again in this committee, and they feel like some of the work that they've done before has to be redone at the full planning commission. I don't know if it's true. You guys would have a better understanding of that of me. I just know that the issue that they've raised, and apparently independently they've raised it with Mark Meyer, because he gave us the second on that. So that's essentially the issue, and the solutions that were discussed were one, if I think it was phrased by Adam, is if someone chooses to go to the design review, then and they get approved by design review, that it's not considered here by your committee. It's one and done. You get that review. The second option that I've seen and thought about is that people might have the option not to go to design review because they've been doing this for a long time and they're well known here in the community, and they would just come here to the planning commission in one process. So the process, the objective is to how do we expedite and make it more efficient for the people that are trying to get the approval. I truthfully think, you guys are the expert in this. I know the problems because I hear them, but I think there's still an opportunity because we haven't even begun to look at the solutions yet, and Adam's going to take a look at those. And so if you have input into those, or feel free to talk to him and express your concerns or your ideas. And he's going to come back to the city council at the next meeting or the following with his proposed solution to the issue, if there is one. I haven't talked to any other city council members, so I don't know if they agree. I got a second on it, so they expressed the same concerns. So it may die at that point. I don't know. So. And maybe you might have some input into that, and I'm actually happy to listen to you too, since I would defer a lot to your judgment on these issues. So that's.
Thank you for taking the time to come out here and share that with us, because I think we all want to do a good job.
Okay. Yeah.
And we all want to work together, and so if there's opportunities, we want to certainly learn what our concerns, and we want to hear that. So thanks for being here and sharing that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
So, okay, yeah, we'll just go ahead and, I want to recognize one more council member that's here. Councilmember Loeffler, did you want to speak to this at all, or did you just want to listen?
No, I'm just listening.
Got it. Let's hear, listen. So, Commissioner Crandall, Bart has been on the Planning Commission for 13 years?
A long time.
I think we lost track.
Yeah.
And,
Don't count anymore.
yeah, as well as design review, and maybe your sage wisdom and your perspective might be helpful.
Yeah, my comment is, they really are two different things. Design review gives the applicant a opportunity to present their thoughts, how they want to do their project, with far less detail and information than is required to bring it in front of the Planning Commission. It can be in a schematic form, and sometimes applicants who have an architect who has not gone through the process, they put way too much information in it and are wasting time. And what we see at design review is typically improved and embellished with far more information when it finally comes up here. So in fact, it's a favor to the applicants to go through it. It's usually a one and done if they've done their work with far less information. And then it's basically a milestone. They can say, okay, architect, go to the next phase, put together all this additional information required, grading plan, landscape plans, et cetera, to bring it up to the Planning Commission level. So it serves a big benefit, and usually the only ones that complain are the ones who've never been through the process and have stumbled getting through design review because they didn't do their homework. So I don't want anybody to forget that it is two different entities, and design review is just giving guidance. It's not a blessing that it's going to be approved, but they can craft their application to the three members on design review, and if they can get them in their corner and say, this is what I want to do. When they bring it up to Planning Commission, they're almost assured of having 3 favorable votes and only have to convince 1 or 2 additional members at that level. So don't forget, if somebody brings it to us and we make a decision on it, they risk being denied and either having to go through appeal or do they have to wait a year with the same thing after a denial, which we don't like to do. I mean, that's not something we do a lot of, but it can happen if they haven't crafted their project accordingly, and the downside to a no vote is not good.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen too many.
I've seen a few.
Steve, did you have any thoughts that you want to share? And I can wrap it up.
Of course I do. I don't have the tenure that Commissioner Crandall has, at least on the commission. But I have been sitting on the design review subcommittee for
4 years?
4 years now, 4 years. And in addition to that, I have my own architectural business, and we've been around for 35 years, still practicing. So I guess I have the benefit of having been on both sides of the dais in multiple cities throughout, not just the state of California, but throughout the country. And, California certainly is the toughest, we know that, to get things approved. But I've had experience in a lot of cities where they don't have a design review subcommittee or any sort of design review. It's just the planning commission. And actually, in a lot of cities, it's just city council. So I believe, from the experience I've had sitting on this commission and the design review subcommittee, that it actually creates an efficiency that a lot of these cities don't have, because there's an opportunity to present the project in a much more informal manner so that we can act sort of in a different capacity, which is to support the project and to put it in a better light, I think, in terms of especially the planning and the design issues, so that by the time it gets to planning commission, it's ready to be approved. I mean, that's the goal. We're obviously not an approval body, but what I've experienced, especially in the last few years and recently, we've been getting some interesting submittals, is that the applicants really appreciate what we offer in the city of San Clemente that's not being offered in a lot of other cities. Certainly Santa Barbara, places like that, you're going to have a design review committee. But a lot of cities don't have that. And so I advocate. I appreciate being able to sit on that committee. I've been chair of that committee for the last couple of years. And I think we're doing some good work there that's really helping, not just to get better projects built, but helping the applicants to understand what's required to get it approved in a more efficient manner. So, I mean, I would hate to see that go away if that's the consideration. I think it would be a big loss for the city. And it's more work, you know, I got another night, you know, and more review. But I think we do a lot of good work over there, and I think it's important, especially with our city having the kind of character that it does in reviewing the kind of projects that we see, which take more evaluation, you know. And I like to think, I mean, I'm not doing this obviously for the money, but I like to think that we've had a very positive impact on our community at large, especially Commissioner Crandall, but even myself in the last few years. So for what that's worth, hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I just want to wholeheartedly echo what Commissioner Crandall and Commissioner Camp said. I was on the design review subcommittee. Prior to this current slate of commissioners, there was, my perception and what I've been told is there was a much more arduous process to go through design review. As an example, I was told that the outlet mall went through 17 times. It just created an endless delay. Councilman Noblock told me, you know, it took, I don't know how many years to approve that. He said, we've won world wars faster than it takes to, you know, build something like that in town. So my experience on it, and since then being off of it, but knowing what's going on, is that they're very efficient. In almost all cases, the projects come to the design review, they're reviewed, a lot of suggestions are made, and they're saying, hey, we recommend, you don't have to make these changes, we recommend them, we think it's a better project if you do them, and you can go straight to planning commission. You don't need to come back and we need to look at them again. Occasionally, if there's a lot there, they'll say, we recommend you come back, but they don't have to. They can say, hey, we want to go straight to planning commission. I guess I am wondering, does design review get public noticed?
Yes.
So there's, you know, there's some delay there. I wonder if that has to be the case, if it could go without being public noticed.
Clarifying, design review is not a public hearing, so we hold regular meetings, but there's not public noticing standards that are required.
To the neighbors, 500 foot
Correct.
radius. Okay.
Yeah.
And then so I don't know how long the applicant has to apply in advance of the, you know, going to design review before it actually gets on a calendar and so forth. But big picture, I agree wholeheartedly. I think it's a big benefit to the applicants. And we've heard that many times, like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. Thank you so much. Because they can sit down, across the table, talk to the design review subcommittee, say, we're thinking about this, we're thinking about that, and, you know, bounce ideas off and quickly get to a better design Versus like at the planning commission level, we don't do that back and forth. They can say their 3 minutes or 10 minutes of stuff, and ultimately we say yes or no, but we're not, kind of interactively going back and forth. So the way it's currently being operated, I think it's a big benefit to the applicants. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, and again, thanks for being here to listen to our perspective, because when we, with the exception of Commissioner Crandall, the rest of us all got on here at the same time. And the night that we were all interviewed, and this was back when we were in the community center, I think almost 5 years now, something like that, 4 or 5 years, we were told that there was a desire from the city council that the planning commission does not do design, that we do not here to design at the planning commission. Don't do it. In other words, I think the phrase was, no design from the dais. Just go through the agenda and look at it from the perspective of zoning, general plan, adherence to standards, and what the permit requirements are. Anything for design, leave that to the design review subcommittee, where it is in a different forum. It's in a conference room. You guys have seen us in there. And we're all working around a conference table where we're just batting ideas back and forth, and at the end, it's the applicant's decision what they want to do. And then when they come here, we're learning about the design because that's part of the application, but we're really looking to the design reviews subcommittee feedback to see how did that go, and is that is that adherent to our standards? So what we do is we're basically, the way I look at the planning commission is we're a quasi-judicial body. We are here not to legislate. We're not here to make up the rules. We're here to interpret the rules like a judge would. And so we interpret the general plan, the zoning code, and design guidelines. So there are documents on the city website. In fact, it's called the Henry Lenny Design Guidelines. It's about 110 pages. And it goes into all the standards for San Clemente design. That is the secret sauce for maintaining the charm of San Clemente, and the San Clemente Village by the Sea is in that 110 pages. That's what spells it out. And there are examples all over town of how good and bad. And that's all done at the design review. So when it comes here, we learn it, but we don't really open the hood and start tinkering. That, we all regard that as something we don't do. We just basically go with what the applicants coming in and what the design review committee work with and their work. So that's, I think, where we were kind of coming from is we defer to them. And I agree with what Scott said. When I first got on, we were doing the West Pico Corridor Specific Plan, that's Los Molinas. And we had, in one of our early public hearings, people from Los Molinas say, do you even know what Los Molinas is about? And we were invited to go down there. And Karen and I went down and met with one of the business owners in Los Molinas. And he basically educated us that there's a lot of unique ideas that they have in their community and they need to be heard. So I spent the day with him, and he'd walked me around. And one of the places he took me to was the Los Molinas Brewery. They had not yet opened. And the owners were there trying to get their business open. And the gentleman that was walking me around knew him really well and introduced me. And they stopped what they were doing and they said, can we talk to you? And I said, absolutely, I'm here to listen. And they described to me a process that took them over a year of going through design review. And they described a very nitpicky process that they said was very hard for them. And they had to go back and go back and go back. And I think I've shared that with some of the members here, that we absolutely want to get away from that. We want to do one meeting, give them the suggestions, then it's up to them. So I think there has been definitely a turn to, to not have applicants come back over time and not delay them, and just simply give them the free consulting and then move on. That's number one. Number two, in my 3 years of being on design review, there's been several times where staff had discretion to bring it to us, and they chose to do it because the applicant themselves were struggling with how to get their goals achieved, and the staff was not supporting their goals. So we would then sit and listen to the applicant and their goals, and then work with the staff to see if we could shape a compromise or help both sides get to a yes. Or explain maybe to the applicant, well, here's why the staff is saying this. Could you achieve it this way or this way or this way? And so we have ended up being, I think, at times, a buffer between the applicant and the staff where there might be disagreements or just something gets stuck. And it's just been a really good forum to just work that through. The other thing I've noticed, or point three, is there are great architects in town, but there are people that are new or designers that are not architects, or they're people from out of town, and they come in with ideas that are not San Clemente, and they've never looked at the design guidelines. They've never looked at the 110 pages. They didn't even know it was there. And some of their projects are not compatible with the Spanish Village by the Sea. And so one of the things that I think we do really good at is opening up that conversation and saying, are you familiar with the design guidelines? Here's what they are. Here's what they're trying to do. With some very small changes to your project, you could actually move it into compliance with it. But if you don't do that, your business will not fit into the community. You will not be compatible with the architecture. And I think your business would do better if it were. And many times, that's a big light bulb moment, and they're like, you're right, we didn't know about that, and we want to make a change. The other thing is, and the last example is, we do save time and money. We have some, like I said, really good architects. Michael Luna is one of the best architects around. He brought us Salty Turf miniature golf a couple of months ago. And in the first round of design review, they were proposing two buildings. The front entrance, and then a separate building in the back for a snack bar. And I think it was Commissioner Crandall that said, we think you might want to consolidate into one. And I think if we could maybe, and he turned to the staff, is there any way we could give them an extension of the parking lot to provide them to have an entrance? And the staff said, I think we could do that. And it was sort of a brainstorming, work it out, kind of out loud, talk out loud. And at the end of the day, Mr. Luna came back and said, we're so thrilled we had that meeting because we've cut our construction costs tremendously. We've reduced our footprint to one building. We want to use that now grand entrance instead. And we think our business is going to be much better for it. And so we saved them money in construction and gave them some ideas because we're able to kind of think outside the box and maybe make suggestions and turn to staff and say, is this something we can do? So to be an advocate for the project and the advocate for the applicant. So those are just some examples that I wanted to share. And if I were to pick a picture of the Venn diagram, I would say the only overlap of the two circles is in the project description. Otherwise, design review is about the architecture, those design guidelines. Planning Commission is about zoning, municipal code, general plan, parking, and the conditional use permit. So we focus on that, whereas design review doesn't focus on any of that. It's only on design. So that's my feeling.
Can I just add one thing?
Yeah.
Or two things. Just real briefly, you talked about the Los Molinos Brewery experience.
Yep.
And we've heard of other experiences. My understanding is the reason there was a wholesale change of the Planning Commission was because of that kind of minutia and problems that they were creating. And that's why they whitewashed 6 out of 7 of the commissioners because, and since that's happened, I think it's running great. The other thing I wanted to mention is we are extraordinarily lucky and blessed here. Two of the three design review subcommittee members are Commissioner Camp, who's a super senior experienced architect, and Commissioner Crandall, who's a super senior experienced architect, and Chair Cosgrove, who is really you're not an architect, to my knowledge.
No, I'm not.
But very thorough and smart, and learns and so forth. So it just so happens right now we're super lucky, and I just want to point that out.
Thanks. Okay, well, I just want to invite you guys here just so we could have the opportunity to share our thoughts and hear your feedback. So thank you for that. Jonathan, did you have anything you wanted to add to this discussion?
Not at the moment, but definitely have been listening, and staff is going to be meeting along with Adam and looking at what some of those potential solutions will be, and of course we'll provide notice to the Planning Commission when that item.
One thing I would add to your feedback is, because in listening to some of the comments last night, I was hearing kind of the discussion around, well, maybe they're two separate bodies. Because the definition of when it goes to design review is in our municipal code. It's not just random. There is some discretion, and staff can say, no, if you don't want to, you don't have to, or you have to. And oftentimes, as I mentioned, staff will say, we want it to go there. In fact, Adam has just recently deferred one of his items back to us to work through, because the HOA had no guidelines and they were in conflict with the applicant, and he punted it back. But if they're two separate, let's just go down this scenario of, let's say we were to create a separate design review standalone committee, and they had the authority to approve the design. Would that have implications in staff time and staffing to create more detailed staff reports, more detailed resolution, more detailed permitting information, and capture all the action items, like you agreed to this, whereas now the staff report's very light, and the outcome is pretty much captured in the minutes. And so I'm wondering, if we did create two separate groups, if the staff effort, if the staff can even support that without it costing them more time and money to do it. That's just a thought to think about, if that is one of the options looked at.
Yeah, we will certainly address that in the report that goes to council. And just to briefly address it now, design review is a quasi-judicial body, so those who are on it already know this, but it's informal recommendations that are provided. If it were to become a judicial body that is enacting decisions related to public hearing projects, then we would need to implement noticing for those meetings. So the advanced noticing would have to be a component, and instead of just a staff report, we would also need to be expanding those packets to include resolutions related to those projects. So there would be some additional considerations related to staff time, yes.
Yep. Okay. And to me, that sounds like it slows things down, but
I also want to
Yeah.
point out that when we all got together on planning, it was a fresh start for everyone, that we looked at streamlining and to try to encourage a more streamlined permit process. And there wasn't any more group that was behind Track It than this group here, and trying to get that pushed through so that you could track your project. Before that, it wasn't part of the city.
yeah, I would say that when we did have that streamlining project come, and we spent months to develop objective standards that the applicant could see and go, I meet it or I don't meet it, and that would streamline things. The other thing it did was consolidated the permit types. I think we consolidated, I don't know the exact number, Jonathan, but it was over 10 down to, I think, 4 or 2. And there was the belief by staff that part of why things took long is because people would apply for permit A, but they needed permit D. And then they do all the work on permit A, submit it, and then 30 to 45 days later, nope, you needed permit D, and they had to start over.
All over.
So the streamlining was really more make the permit you need clearer so that we avoided false starts. But the one thing that we did not do was really investigate the turnaround time or handoffs between departments. We did not look at how we could automate using Trackit, maybe a portal for applicants to go in and check and see where the status is, and if they had outstanding requirements, get a text message or an email to alert them that your project is in review, your project has been found acceptable, you're moving on, or your project has outstanding requirements. Check, click here and see what they are so you can submit them. That was something that I think we were very interested in, seeing if there could be time to look at those enhancements to Trackit to improve the portal for the applicant. Is that fair, Jonathan? The characteristic of kind of how we left it after the last streamlining discussion?
Yeah, that was one component of the discussion related to just the management of workflow. And there have been a number, I'm not reporting out all of the updates that are made internally to processes, but just to give a couple recently. So the ADUs, we initially did a pre-screen planning permit, and then you'd go get your building permit. We've worked that out to be consolidated into one submittal instead of two. We recently, deposit accounts have always been a challenge for the city, and frankly, there's going to be issues with that until our new financial system gets implemented. However, we now collect those, we can collect those electronically as well. That's something that's only been by paper check and passed around for long before I was here and until the last couple of weeks. So there, those incremental 1% improvements we're always looking to make and will continue to make.
All right, well, thank you guys for coming and listening and also bringing to our attention with the feedback you're getting. Thank you. Jonathan, do we have anything else under this item for staff reports?
I just wanted to give kudos to our staff member, Jessica Gatney, for her presentation tonight. She's one of our newer staff members, and she also was at she was called to be on a jury and has been occupied until after 5 p.m. and hurried over here to do her presentation.
Jennifer,
so kudos
you're
to
above and beyond.
Jessica.
Thank you so much. And I thought you did do very well with your presentation. So thank you very much for that.
I have nothing else tonight.
All
Thank
right.
you, Chair.
Thanks, Jonathan. Appreciate it. Okay. Do we have any other comments tonight?
I have a quick question. Since we don't get the paper handouts anymore, I don't really see the TFA. Do we have items for our next meeting?
We do have only one is shown, but there's a couple that are anticipated. One is the bring back of the previously discussed planned residential development standards, and the other is a use permit related to alcohol. So one public hearing item, and then the discussion on planned residential developments. And then I know that we had a few items dropped into the May agenda. Again, a couple of use permits related to alcohol service, but one is related to the retrofit of the Krikorian property. So those are expected shortly here in May. It's a business called The Bowl, so a entertainment business with bowling and arcades and other things of that sort.
Sounds interesting. Jonathan, can you give an update on the Miramar?
I can. I did tour the Miramar building about 10 days ago, and there's been significant improvements. There's some pieces that are in process still. The contractor is on site regularly. Some of the challenges most recently were related to SDG&E, and so the alley area was blocked off for a bit. So if you heard about that, that's because of some both water and power connections that had to be made. Those are, I believe, completed now, so that alley should be back open. Another concern I had heard from the community was related to the color of the vents on the roof. Those will be colored to match the style of the roof. The contractor is aware of that. The interior space is not finished, but nearing. So all of the fridge equipment is in the basement. The hood for the larger kitchen is in the basement. All the hoods for all of the individual units are in place in the bowling alley area. The ventilation elements are in. And then on the theater side, the portico that was not in condition to remain has been rebuilt along with the doors. So that was originally open air, but it's French doors that were approved by the Planning Commission a long time ago. So those have been installed. They are still working on the box beams on the interior. That's like the large beams that cross from left to right on the interior of the building, but the addition area is completed. So where they're at now is like the restrooms are stubbed, but they're looking at kind of the installing fixtures phase of that TI area or the shell area. We anticipate the shell to be completed fairly soon, but then there will be a next step, and that's there's a lot of subtenants, and so each of those subtenants most likely will make minor modifications. So I've already approved a couple of those subtenant improvements, but before they start work, OCFA at least needs to come into the shell to sign off on the shell as a whole before the additional individual spaces get refinished with their final like tile and materials of that sort.
Thank you.
So Jonathan, we're adjourning to the 16th? That's the next one? Is that-
Yes, let's adjourn to the 16th, just in case we have anything that comes up of an urgent nature, but I don't anticipate that we'll be holding that meeting.
Okay,
So
so,
let's still adjourn to that date.
Okay.
In case, so we don't have to publish a special meeting.
all right. Someone want to make a motion then to adjourn us?
I move we adjourn to the next regularly scheduled Planning Commission meeting of April 16th.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Commissioner Scott and seconded by Commissioner Karen. All those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Adjourn. Thank you, everybody. Thanks again, Victor and Rick, for being here.